Alright, looking from a lateral point of view now at a real skull, here we firstly, on the posterior aspect, we can see there's a bump here. That's the external occipital protuberance. Now sometimes they're very pronounced, sometimes they're pretty hard to see, but the external occipital protuberance will be the biggest bump there that you find on the occipital bone. Then we have the temporal fossa. Now the temporal fossa is this depression in here where the bone comes in. It doesn't stick out as far as the zygomatic arch does, so there's quite a large fossa here. It's just a little bit of a depression. Then we've got the external acoustic meatus, which is of course the ear hole, so that can be seen just right there. And then just inferior and posterior to that, the mastoid process. Now anterior to the external acoustic meatus, we then have the zygomatic arch. That's this whole structure here. So if there was a line of blue tack right along that with a pin in it, that would be zygomatic arch, but it's made up of two parts. And if we just zoom in a little bit, we'll see them very clearly. You can see there's a jagged suture there. So there's a line here that means we've got two separate bones here. Now, as I said, the whole thing is the arch, but if there was a pin just here, that's indicating that I just want you to tell me the name of this process. Now this is the zygomatic process of the temporal bone, but this one here is the temporal process of the zygomatic bone. Okay, so we've got zygomatic bone here, temporal bone here. Temporal bone has a zygomatic process, the zygomatic bone has a temporal process. Together they make up the arch. So just be careful that you look closely at what's pinned. There's two processes and one arch. Then we can hopefully see a styloid process. Now on this particular skull, styloid process is pretty small, but you can just see it here. Now on some of the other ones it's larger, and on some it's broken, so it's not there at all. But here we've got a small styloid process, so it's inferior to the external acoustic meatus. And then we can see, again, if we look carefully, we can see the sutures in the temporal fossa here. You can see that there's a whole lot of bones coming together there. Now that landmark there is called pterion, but it will be clearer on a coloured skull. So here where we've got frontal, parietal, temporal and sphenoid bones all coming together, that is called pterion, that area there. And then in order to see the next structures, we'll just have a go at putting the calvaria back on. And what we can hopefully see, if I can just get them to catch the light, are a couple of lines here. So here we have a superior temporal line. And, oh yeah, there you go. It catches the light just there. So there is the superior temporal line. And then inferior to it, there's an inferior temporal line. Now that one's not quite as clearly visible on this skull as would be nice if it was, but there should be two temporal lines here, a superior and an inferior one. So they're the temporal lines. Then we've got petrous and squamous parts of the temporal bone. Now we'll have a quick look, we'll just cheat a bit and have a look on the inside first. Here we've got the temporal bone here. We can see that there's a very thin part here that's almost see-through. You can kind of see the shadow of the towel underneath through that. But here's a petrous or rock-like part. Now squamous means thin or flat. Petrous means rock-like, so this is a thick part. So if we're looking at those parts from an external or lateral point of view, the thick part is here. So that would be the petrous part of the temporal bone, just superior to the mastoid process. And this would be the squamous part of the temporal bone above that. So thin here, but thick here.